This story reaches its breaking point at a mansion party in Los Angeles. Nothing possibly could go wrong there, right? Well, let's throw another red flag on the fire. So we used to play RPGs fairly regularly with a player we'll call Benny. When I first met Benny and his wife, he seemed like my kind of guy. Into comic books, Robotech, and metal music. Him and his wife role-played and had kids. My wife and I had kids, so we could get together for role-playing and let the kids hang out and play video games during. Everyone wins, right? Well, I'm telling you this story for a reason. My friend was GMing an old school game, White Wolf's Street Fighter II RPG. We made characters, fought, had fun, and were all playing competition fighters on a pro circuit. So we went to in-game events and parties. One session ended at a hotel, and when it was over, Benny passes my wife a note. Everyone leaves, and my wife is a little perplexed with the note, and shows it to me after they leave.
Stinks that the game ended. My character was about to ask yours if they wanted to go to the hot tub together.
So it's an out-of-character note? To this day, we aren't sure if it was something he didn't want his wife to see, and I get it. My wife was pretty attractive with tattoos and such, but we decided that maybe it was a good idea to keep an eye on Benny. Then the worst night of gaming I have ever experienced in RPGs happened. So the Street Fighter game fizzles out. Cut forward 4 years or so, and we bump into Benny and his wife. All seems well.
Hey, we should resurrect that game. I have all the books.
It sounded like a good idea at the time. Once again, Street Fighter RPG. Characters in a pro fighting circuit sponsored by an energy drink. Session 0 is simple. Kids have fun, everyone goes home. Just before Session 1 happens, my wife's grandmother passes away. When Benny, wife, and kids come over, the whole thing started with Benny's stupid, bless her heart, Southern, tell it like it is comment at my wife, suggesting that my wife's grandma might not be in heaven because they were Catholic. Wife is angry. I talk her down, and we ask Benny's wife to just not talk religion with us. Ugh. Quick side note, we later found out his wife locked their kids in their bedroom to play all day so she could not safe for work chat on City of Heroes all day uninterrupted, and they wound up not learning the names of all the typical colors until they were in 2nd grade. Or couldn't count to 20, or something stupid. Corner note, she was the one to tell us this. So the fighters go to a party at a mansion in Los Angeles. They go with some swag to hang out, drink samples, etc. It's an LA rich kid's house party owned by one of the sponsors' kids. So my guy goes in to meet people, shake hands, give some free tickets to the upcoming fight. You know, being promotional. Benny asks his wife and mine if they have been drinking. They say yes. Then he said the dreaded post, "Have you been drinking GM" phrase.
Roll a stamina check.
They both fail and are informed that they fade to black. Benny then describes to my wife that she wakes up in the back room with 2 men on top of her and one of them holding a camcorder as she is getting taken advantage of in front of a small audience. My wife just freezes. He describes it, says they finish, and give each other high fives and leave. My wife staring, speechless. Benny then describes the same to his wife. His wife does probably the second most disgusting thing I've ever seen her do, right behind telling a grieving person that their grandmother didn't go to heaven. She opts to claim to have slept through getting Cosby'd, wakes up, and out of character emotes taking a huge long sniff, starts grinning from ear to ear, and jokes, "Oh yeah, I just got laid." My response? My character is a pro fighter, so he is going to destroy these people. But Benny, as GM, decides everyone at the party doesn't get why my PC is being so uncool and refuses to let there be any ramifications on the forceful NPCs. Trying to do that in-game was my diplomatic "what's wrong with you" response, while my wife and I are just looking at each other. "This is over. Get out." Benny and his wife are amazed that we aren't being cool about it. We explain to them that you do not surprise people in games with stuff like that, especially when there are survivors of this type of assault playing in your game. They don't apologize and actually stand their ground, claiming that we should act like adults and be cool about it. Their reasoning was that an adult game means adult situations. We throw them and their kids out, and they are 100% blacklisted from our social radar. We later found out that Benny also ran a vampire LARP where he GM'd and played the in-charge vampire who would punish characters who failed him by showing their players a massive purple toy and described to them in detail how they were punished with it. So just to be clear, the player literally kept a not safe for work toy in a bag at a game for the sole purpose of showing it to the players. This was not an imaginary prop. Apparently, there was a 16-year-old player in the game he did this to who was also a victim of this type of assault, who ended up running from the game crying. When myself and others heard about this and reached out on Facebook to explain that what he did to a minor was actually illegal, he threw the 16-year-old and anyone who complained about it out of the LARP for not being cool about it and kept saying, "Adult game means adult situations." I've got to admit, I did not see the horrible couple angle coming. Benny was certainly a bad DM and person, but I think the wife might have him beat outside the gaming table based on this story. I'm kinda curious how come it took so long to see the red flags, since there was a 4-year gap in between there. But life does distract you at times. What do you all think about this situation? Who do you think is worse, Benny or his wife? This story is a 2-for-1. In the first half, the DM copies a popular superhero TV series plot for his game, including the main characters, which are not the players. In the second half, the DM wants the players to sympathize with the big bad evil guy. So let's throw a couple of logs on the fire. This story takes place at the beginning of quarantine after agreeing to join a superhero tabletop RPG, Mutants and Masterminds, ran by a player of mine in another campaign, Jack. Jack dropped me into a Discord with 2 other players where the 3 of us quickly made our characters. These people were Violet, who played a smart but weak archetype, Carmen, who played a tank, and myself, who played a rogue type. None of us were given too much information on the world before joining the game. It was only until we were a few sessions in that Jack revealed to us that the story was based around a popular superhero TV series. We shrugged this off, assuming he was just taking inspiration. But the further we began to play the game, the more it was evident that the plot was fully ripped from the series, from reskinned villains to a group of his own NPCs taking the place of the main characters. Despite this was the least of our issues as the game progressed. Our characters progressively took loss after loss as villains would escape. We would get out with our lives, and Jack would call this a victory. The rest of us and our characters thinking otherwise. This led up to the finale, where Jack's NPC ended up taking down the big bad before we even got there, and the rest of us simply had to convince him to hand the big bad evil guy over to the police instead of killing him. This left us without a true victory throughout the entire campaign. We also later learned from Carmen that throughout the campaign, Jack would tell them how their character should act specifically for the purpose of causing drama and tension. This included everything from acting out to nearly killing a PC. He then would complain about said player's character acting how they were, basically creating his own problem character and campaign scapegoat. This led to a close when Carmen asked if their character could eventually retire post-game and be happy after all that happened. To this, Jack refused, saying that it wasn't in their character. Violet's character got the opposite end of the spectrum and was treated as the clear favorite. They received screen time, praise for their character, etc. My own character was mostly glossed over except for a few minor plot points, leading to the end where the person acknowledging the player's help asked, "What did you do again?" Although, compared to everything else, this wasn't a huge issue. In the beginning of the game, we got a blacklist of topics we wished to not be discussed. For the purpose of this, both Violet and I put forceful assault, assuming it wouldn't be an issue. As Jack had stated before, he doesn't like to include such material. Despite this, he included 2 separate NPCs who had previously been assaulted, and told us so, as well as having a yandere NPC nearly assault Violet's character to the point that the player had to request he stop what he was doing. The 3 of us stuck it out, enjoying one another's company enough to agree to another campaign with Jack as our GM. This time, Dungeons and Dragons. Things started out well enough. Our characters maintained actual wins in battle, and we were actually having fun. This was until Jack elected for one of his big bad evil guys, a war general, to attack us, which is all fine and dandy, except for the fact that the war general was level 20, while the three of us were level 3. This was made to show off how cool this enemy was, only to cause us extreme frustration in a battle we were made to lose. The three of us asked him to not do this again, to which Jack agreed and apologized for doing so. As the campaign progressed, more was revealed about the Big Bad Evil Guy's organization's goals and how they were planning on going into other countries and destroying them before they can attack them first, in order to preserve their culture, despite forcing every race under their organization to follow one religion. As the players, we quickly all agreed that these guys needed to go down. Despite this, Jack would consistently defend them whenever we would make comments against the group or Big Bad Evil Guys. He expected us to figure out that each of them had their own reason for joining. Collectively, we agreed that no reason could justify what they were doing, which seemed to upset Jack even further. The rest of us decided to keep playing at this point for the sake of each other rather than the story. It was here where we met our breaking point. After having defeated a batch of baddies, our players were faced with another of the Big Bad Evil Guy's generals. Another seemingly impossible enemy with 26 AC and plus 10 to nearly every stat. Our group decided to tag team this enemy, choosing to either TPK or win. As the battle progressed, things were looking up, as we had 2 healers to keep ourselves level, and with enough spells, we began to steadily take down the Big Bad Evil Guy's health. This was until the Big Bad Evil Guy, a barbarian type who didn't use magic, was suddenly and inexplicably teleported out of the battle. Jack explained that he was gone now and the fight was over. This was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to say. We organized our thoughts post-campaign and walked out. The three of us now have a group together, looking for new games to join, hopefully with a better GM. There are more stories about Jack as a player, but those are for another time. Lastly, Jack, if you're listening to this, I don't even know what to say other than please learn more about collaborative storytelling if you try and DM again. I'm sorry, but I feel like the second half should not have happened. The DM made you side characters in the first game. You should not be rewarding that behavior with an encore. Being in a fight against someone 10 plus levels higher than you should never happen in a game. If you want to do something like that, at least cutscene it or something. Players should feel empowered, not helpless. What do you all think about this situation? When would you have left this DM?